the Tonia Osagie story, based on Romans 8:31. Previously in Part 1. We met 16-year-old Tonia from Benin City, a humble girl with a worn-out uniform, big dreams, and unshakable faith. Despite being mocked by classmates, sabotaged by rivals, and overlooked by society, Tonia held on to one truth. If God be for us, who can be against us? With the love of her mother, the guidance of Miss Agnes, and the fire of purpose burning within her, she shocked everyone by winning the national science competition. Not by power, but by grace. That was not just a victory for Tonia, but a testimony for every child who dares to believe. Now in Part 2, Tonia's light is shining. But when favor finds you, so will new battles. As opportunities rise, so does jealousy, pressure, and unexpected challenges. Will Tonia continue to trust God when the stage gets bigger and the enemies grow louder? Get ready for an emotional, faith-building continuation that proves, when God starts a story, He writes it to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's walk through this journey of faith, purpose, and power together. The morning sun rose over Benin City. It was no longer just another day. It was the day after everything changed. At St. Faith's Secondary School, the gate was busier than usual. Students walked in groups, pointing and whispering. Tonia Osagie, one said. She's on TV. In the principal's office, Tonia sat beside Miss Agnes. Her blue shirt was clean but old, and her dark blue skirt was neatly ironed. She held her science notes on her lap. Across from them sat a woman in a blazer with Edo State TV printed on the chest. She had a notepad and a camera beside her. The principal smiled proudly and introduced them. This is the young lady who brought honor to our school. She's a light in this generation. The reporter turned to Tonia with a warm smile. Tonia, people across the country are talking about you. From reading under a kerosene lamp to winning a science contest. What gave you the strength to keep going? Tonia looked down, then lifted her eyes slowly. My mother's prayers. And the Bible. Romans 8:31. It gave me hope. The reporter nodded, then said, You'll be on the 6 p.m. news. Get ready. Your story is about to touch more lives than you can imagine. As the woman packed up her equipment and left, the principal looked at Tonia. You have made this school proud, my dear. Stay humble. The world is opening up, but don't forget where your help came from. Tonia nodded gently. Yes, sir. That afternoon, across town, in a more advanced school called Dominion International, a group of students watched the news clip of Tonia's. Pamela, a tall girl in a fine uniform, rolled her eyes. She was the top student at Dominion, and proud of it. They're talking like she's the only student in Edo State, Pamela said. A teammate replied, She's trending on Twitter. Everybody's calling her a miracle child. Pamela stood up and crossed her arms. Let's see how she does at the national level. This is not Pepper Soup Junction anymore. It's real science now. That evening at home, Mama Tonia stirred a pot of soup with a happy heart. She was humming praise songs as she danced from one side of the kitchen to the other. Tonia, she called with joy, you're on TV again. Neighbors are calling your name outside. Oh! Just then, the door swung open. Chidera, Tonia's close friend, ran in, holding a paper. Tonia, big news, she said, almost breathless. A university representative came to school today. They said they want to give you a full scholarship. Tonia's eyes widened. A scholarship? Yes, Chidera shouted. Whether you win at the national level or not, they want you to study science abroad. They said your story gave them hope. Tonia dropped her book and covered her mouth in shock. Mama Tonia screamed joyfully, Praise the Lord! I said it! My child will shine! The three of them jumped and hugged each other, singing songs of joy as they danced around the room. Tonia's small table was filled with books and science models, but tonight, the room was filled with praise. That night, the lights were off in St. Faith's Chapel. Only one lamp glowed gently near the altar. Tonia was there, kneeling quietly. She lifted her hands and whispered a prayer. Lord, I don't know why you chose me. I'm not better than the other students, but you lifted me. Please help me stay strong. Don't let pride take me, and don't let me forget where you found me. Behind her, the cross stood quietly, glowing in the dim light. Somewhere else, on the empty school field, Emeka sat alone on a wooden bench. Other students played on the far side, but he stayed apart, watching in silence. Pastor Daniel, who served part-time as the school chaplain, walked toward him. "Young man," he said kindly, "why are you sitting here alone?" Emeka shrugged. "I failed. I tried to stop someone else from rising, and she still rose. I don't belong here anymore." Pastor Daniel sat beside him. "You know, some of the greatest men in the Bible made mistakes. Peter denied Jesus, but he became a great leader. Falling doesn't end your story. What matters is what you do after the fall." Emeka nodded slowly, his eyes glassy. "Do you think it's too late to change?" The pastor smiled. "It's never too late when your heart is still open." The day of the National Science Challenge had finally arrived. Large banners waved gently at the entrance of the event center in Abuja. The words, "National Science Challenge 2025, were printed in bold across every corner. The air buzzed with excitement. Bright cameras flashed. Students from top schools arrived in branded buses, pulling expensive suitcases filled with high-tech equipment. Tonia stood quietly at the entrance, holding her worn school bag. She looked around the crowd. Some of the students looked twice her size. Their uniforms were sharp and new, their shoes polished, their tools shiny. But Tonia stood firm. Her mother's voice echoed in her heart. "You are a light, Tonia. Just shine." Miss Agnes walked beside her, adjusting her ID tag. "Are you ready?" she asked gently. Tonia nodded. "Yes, Ma. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to shine for the one who brought me this far." From a distance, Pamela saw her and walked closer. Her group whispered behind her. Pamela stopped in front of Tonia. "You made it," Tonia smiled politely. "Yes, and I came with more than books. I came with purpose." Pamela raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She turned and walked away. Inside the large hall, judges sat behind long tables. Scientists, teachers, journalists, and school heads filled the seats. There were bright lights, cameras, and microphones all around. Backstage, Tonia sat alone with her Bible open on her lap. Her hands were shaking. She had practiced many times, but this felt different. She looked down at the open page. Romans 8:31 was underlined in red. Miss Agnes appeared behind her. "You don't need to perform," she said gently. "Just speak from your heart. That's what you've done all along." Tonia nodded, closed her eyes, and whispered a short prayer. "Lord, help me speak truth, not just facts." The host called out names. One by one, students came forward and gave their presentations. Some had big machines, some used projectors, some used tablets and robot arms. Then came the moment. "Next," the host announced, "representing St. Faith's Secondary School, Tonia Osagie." The room clapped politely. Tonia walked slowly to the front. The lights were bright. The hall looked bigger than she imagined. She placed her Bible beside her notes, took a deep breath, and stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon, esteemed judges, students, and everyone watching," she began. Her voice was soft at first. "My name is Tonia Osagie. I come from St. Faith's Secondary School, Benin City." She paused, then smiled gently. "I didn't come with gadgets or expensive machines. I came with a story about how science and survival meet." Behind her, a screen showed a photo of her old kerosene lamp and a table full of hand-drawn notes. "This," she said, pointing to the screen, "was my first laboratory. I didn't have lab tools or electricity, but I had questions, ideas, and faith. The crowd began to lean in. My project is called Turning Waste to Watts. It is about using kitchen waste to produce clean energy for cooking and lighting in homes like mine. She clicked a button. A simple animation showed how a homemade digester could turn leftover food into cooking gas. With this model, even pepper soup waste, yes, the same one that made people laugh at me, can become energy in just 2 days. She picked up a small glass jar and raised it. This jar holds what many people throw away, but if we can see value in the simple things, then we can change lives. The room was silent. She walked slowly across the stage. I didn't have a lab, but I had faith. I didn't have tools, but I had purpose, and I always had this verse with me. She picked up her Bible. Romans 8:31, if God is for us, who can be against us? There was still silence, but now it was powerful. She looked up again and said with boldness, to every young person out there, you don't need to start from the top to reach the top, you just need belief. In God, in yourself, and in the change your idea can bring. She stepped back. For a moment, there was no sound. Then the applause began. Slow at first, then stronger, then thunderous. One of the judges leaned to another and whispered, she didn't just share a project. She shared herself. Even Pamela, sitting in the front row, paused, then slowly began to clap. For real. Back in Benin, at the school's TV room, Emeka stood up from his chair, clapping with both hands, eyes wet. She did it, he said softly. She really did it. Outside the hall, Mama Tonia waited, dressed in her colorful wrapper, holding her scarf tight. She had refused to travel to Abuja, but had fasted and prayed all day. A woman from the church ran to her compound. Mama Tonia, she's on live TV. The judges are smiling. Your daughter just stole the show. Mama Tonia fell to her knees. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Inside the hall, the host returned to the stage. It's time for the results, he said. After a careful review, the judges have made their decision. The room went quiet. Everyone held their breath. And the winner of the 2025 National Science Challenge is Tonia Osagie from St. Faith's Secondary School. The hall exploded in cheers. Cameras flashed. Students jumped. Teachers clapped. Reporters ran forward. Tonia stood still, frozen. Then tears began to fall from her eyes. She raised her hands slightly as if reaching for the sky. One reporter asked, Tonia, how do you feel? Tonia looked at the camera and whispered, I just want to call my mama. Outside, Mama Tonia fell back into a chair from shock, fanning herself. Neighbors surrounded her. Your daughter is a star, they shouted. She shouted joyfully, Hey God, now you do am, from pepper soup fire to national fire. Everyone laughed and clapped around her. Later that evening, Tonia sat backstage with a bottle of water in her hand. She had stopped crying, but her heart was still full. Pamela approached her. For a while, she said nothing. Then, with a softer voice than usual, she said, You were brilliant. Tonia looked up. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Pamela hesitated, then added, When I first heard your name, I thought you were just a rural pity story. But after today, I see you're the real thing. Tonia smiled gently. We don't have to be rivals, Pamela. One flame doesn't take out another. Pamela looked surprised. Then she nodded. If you ever start your own science program, call me. I'll bring laptops. They both smiled. Not as competitors, but as young women with a purpose. A few days later, at St. Faith's Secondary School, students crowded around Tonia in the classroom. You're a science ambassador now, one student shouted. Your university offer is confirmed, said another. You're leaving for the UK next term. Tonia laughed and smiled with them, but then she noticed Emeka sitting at the back of the class, packing his bag quietly. She walked over to him. Hi. He looked up slowly. I guess I deserve the silence. But I'm sorry. For everything. Tonia looked at him kindly. I forgave you long ago. We were kids. Now we know better. Emeka looked hopeful. Maybe one day I can prove I've changed. Tonia smiled. You already started by apologizing. That Sunday, the church was full. Everyone had come for the Thanksgiving service. The worship was loud. The praise was rich. Pastor Daniel stood beside Tonia and Mama Tonia at the altar. Tonia held the national trophy in one hand and her Bible in the other. She spoke into the mic with a firm voice. I'm not here because I was the best. I'm here because God was with me. From kerosene light to national light, that is what God can do. Romans 8:31 never failed me. The congregation shouted in joy. Mama Tonia danced at the altar with her head tee flying. Children waved their handkerchiefs in the air. Pastor Daniel lifted Tonia's hand high. This is what happens when a child says yes to purpose, he declared. Weeks passed, and it was time for Tonia to travel. She stepped off the bus in London, holding her coat tight. Her breath came out like fog in the cold air. She looked up at the tall buildings and shiny classrooms. I was used to mosquito nets and blackouts, she whispered to herself. Not heated rooms and glass doors. She walked into the university building. Everyone looked different. Some students spoke Mandarin. Others had British accents. After one of her first classes, the lecturer, Professor Ellie Winters, called her aside. I read your paper on local energy models. It was very poetic. But next time, use more academic references. Tonia bowed her head. Sorry. In Nigeria, we didn't have access to many books. Professor Winters nodded. Well, now you do. Use them. I expect you to shine. Tonia walked out, challenged but ready to grow. That night in her room, Tonia stared at the messages from home. Mama Tonia wrote, Don't forget to pray before bed, oh. Chidera sent, You dey miss pepper soup? Tonia laughed softly, then opened her Bible. She whispered, Lord, help me remember who you say I am. She highlighted Romans 8:31 again and wrote on her mirror, If God is for me. In a class project, Tonia shared a plan for solar panels in African villages. One student? HDS that helped the rest of the world? Tonia answered calmly, Because 600 million people in Africa still don't have electricity. That is a world issue. Another student nodded. She's right. That's a problem worth solving. Tonia's leadership began to shine once again. One evening, she walked into a small fellowship group on campus. A choir was singing, You Are God, from beginning to the end. Tonia sat down and began to cry quietly. It felt like home. The leader smiled. Sister Tonia, we've been praying for you. Welcome. Tonia gave her testimony. I thought I came here alone, but I see now God sent me ahead to learn, grow, and return better. The room clapped. Some students already knew her name. Months later, she was invited to present at a world conference for young innovators in Oxford. She stood before professors and business leaders. Her topic? Turning waste to watts, a local model with global impact. An international judge stood up and said, We would like to support your project in Nigeria. Will you let us? Tonia almost cried. Yes, thank you. I never imagined a girl with a kerosene lamp would be heard in Oxford. She was interviewed by a popular African news station. Tonia, the host said, What changed your story? My breaking point, Tonia said, was realizing I wasn't studying just to pass exams. I was studying to break the cycle of struggle in my family. The host leaned in. And who helped you most? Tonia smiled. My mama and God. I carried Romans 8:31 into every exam. Later that night, she had a video call with her mother. Mama, can you believe it? She laughed. Me, from Pepper Soup Junction, now on BBC. Mama Tonia cried softly. It was never your light, my daughter. It was God's light shining through you. They're calling me Africa's energy angel, Tonia said. Mama Tonia laughed through her tears. Just don't forget the pepper soup girl inside you. They both laughed. Mama Tonia lifted a pot from the fire. Come home soon, she said. Your room is ready, and so is the soup. Back home in Benin, Emeka now stood before a group of younger students with a whiteboard behind him. He taught them coding and robotics. I used to let jealousy control me, he said, but I learned that one person's success doesn't stop yours. You don't have to fight light, just turn yours on. Miss Agnes stood by the doorway, smiling. Tonia returned home to a big welcome. Crowds gathered, students cheered. A banner read, STEM for Change, featuring Tonia Osagie. On stage, she held a folder that said Osagie Foundation. When I left Benin, I said I would return, not just with papers, but with answers. Today, I launched the Osagie Science Academy, open to every child, rich or poor. Emeka watched from the crowd. Tonia saw him and smiled. After her speech, they met backstage. You've changed, she said. God didn't give up on me, Emeka said, and your story showed me that my own was not over. Want to help train the next group of students? Tonia asked. Emeka was shocked. You'd let me? If God lifted me, she said, I can lift others. They shook hands, the past behind them, a new future ahead. At church, Pastor Daniel raised both of their hands. These two were once against each other, but today they lead together. That is the power of grace. The church clapped and sang songs of joy. Montage. The light spreads. Students learning robotics at Osagie Science Academy, Emeka teaching young boys how to build apps, Tonia mentoring girls in science, Mama Tonia serving pepper soup to visitors outside the school gate, Pamela donating laptops to support the program. Tonia stood before a hall full of new students. I'm living proof that you don't need everything to begin. You just need faith and the courage to begin anyway. Remember this, if God is for you, then nothing can stop your light from shining. The room clapped. Tonia smiled. She looked up at the banner behind her. It read, The Legacy of Light, coming soon. Life lesson, never let your beginning define your end. You may not start with the best books or clothes, but if you have faith, purpose, and the will to rise, your story will shine. Tonia's life reminds us that grace doesn't check background, it checks the heart. So keep praying, keep believing, keep moving, because if God is for you, nothing and no one can stand against you. Watch out for Part 3, The Legacy of Light, coming soon. Subscribe to African Gospel Tales for more stories that inspire, teach, and change lives. Faith, fire, favor, real stories, true power.